Hello, I'm Jeremy Holliday, and I'm presenting my Module 8 case study, Get This Child Out of My Room for EDL 853. Let's go ahead and take a look. First off, a summary about the case study. We'll start with the main character, Carl. He is a student whose parents have just gone through a divorce 3 months prior. His behavior has begun to change from self-abuse to aggression towards his teacher. His former IEP had been one in which he had a behavior management plan and he got certain rewards and had consequences for his behaviors. The teacher for his homeroom is Mrs. Nancy Taylor, and she's been in the school district for 10 years, perceived as a good teacher by her peers. She wants Carl out of her room. Because of his aggression, she's worried that it's going to eventually turn to other students. So she's asking his SPED teacher to go ahead and revise his IEP that he had just had done a couple weeks prior, actually. Susan is the SPED teacher. She is in her first job right out of college. She's replacing a teacher who had been there 25 years. She's having a bit of a hard time adjusting to a rural district where the resources and services are shared. Speaking of the school district, the school they work for is Schuyler K-12 Comprehensive School. It's part of the Fulton School District, which is one of 16 school districts in an 800-mile span. Schuyler's relatively small, has 250 residents within it, and the superintendent visits the schools one day each week. At each location, there's one staff member who's an assistant to the superintendent, and they assist with paperwork, they teach, and they help with minor problems that arise. Last but not least, Mr. and Mrs. Hughes are Carl's parents. They, like I said prior, were just divorced 3 months earlier. Mrs. Hughes is working 50 hours a week now to support the kids. So first off, we'll take a look at Category 1, Problem Identification Analysis. These things are what do we need, what do we know, what do we need to know, and identifying the problem. As far as what we need to know, Carl's IEP has been updated, so they were able to get his parents in, and they now have an intervention plan to pull Carl as he becomes more aggressive to help present calm down strategies. Mrs. Taylor, his home teacher, feels unsafe and is worried about her students when Carl gets upset. Carl's behaviors are becoming more aggressive. Mrs. Hughes, Carl's mom, is having a difficult time with the divorce, and Mrs. Taylor isn't on the same page as Susan, the new SPED teacher. As far as what we need to know, some ideas that pop into my head include what resources are available to help Carl. Has the superintendent been informed, as he or she is only in the school one day a week? It's important to have communication with them. What strategies are being used in the classroom to help with interventions? Knowing what strategies have been tried can then help us move forward with presenting new strategies to try. Ultimately, the problem is Susan is unsure of who she should help. Who she should have help Carl. Category 2, my proposed plan of action with appropriate strategies for implementation. First off, encouraging Susan and her intervention plan she has come up with would be a great place to start. She's a new teacher and she's needing to feel some support from me. As far as Susan and Mrs. Taylor's relationship, I would want to meet with them to help facilitate some discussion there to help get them on the same page. I'd want to make sure that I communicated with the superintendent. I'd want to start building a relationship with Carl. We're short on resources, so it's important for me to be able to step in and help as needed. I think recording Carl would be a good idea to be able to show the superintendent what we're working with and to be able to see also triggers that Carl has. This potentially could help us with realizing we need to hire more support staff or different strategies that we need to try to help Carl be successful in the classroom. Last but not least, communicating with a staff member to help with the intervention of removing Carl from the classroom when tension arises. There are certain policies and procedures that need to be followed when removing a child from the classroom, and we need to make sure that we're following those. Category 3, resolve the issues based on promoting the success of all students. So to begin with, updating the IEP is a great way to begin meeting the needs of Carl and keeping his classmates safe. I'm very proud of Susan and her initiative in adjusting his IEP. I think encouraging Susan and her plan that she's developed will help encourage her to feel more confident. I think also it will allow her to help focus on meeting the needs of all the rest of her students on her caseload when she's not as concerned with if she made the right call for Carl. Meeting with Susan and Mrs. Taylor would help them get on the same page and allow them both to see vision moving forward. This is extremely vital to the success of Carl's IEP being followed. Also, recording Carl can help the superintendent realize the importance of potentially getting further support. I know that resources are low, but advocating for a para at my school would be something that I would need to be willing to be okay with. Furthering support would then help the classroom teacher, so Mrs. Taylor, in continuing instruction, and could help promote further inclusion opportunities for Carl if we can help avoid build up of aggression by de-escalating it early. Communicating with staff members to help with interventions of having Carl leave the classroom helps keep Carl safe if restraining is needed. Debriefing the problem. So as I was looking at this case study, I was thinking, wow, lack of resources can really affect a school. Yes, this is very apparent, but I work at a school where going and getting paras is something that we are continually looking at doing, and so I can't even fathom the idea of not being able to potentially add a para position to get Carl some additional support. I think Susan is doing an excellent job within her role as a first-year teacher. I'm extremely impressed that she's not allowing Mrs. Taylor, who has been a little disappointed in Susan's work, to affect her. I think Mrs. Taylor needs to embrace change. I know that she had stated within this case study that the prior teacher for SPED had taken kids and put them in a secluded room and given them work to do. I like that Susan is doing a good job of working to have students within the classroom and to prevent doing what the prior SPED teacher had done. As I was looking at this case study, some things I was feeling included sadness for Carl. Anytime you hear about a student who is working through their parents getting divorced, I think is heartbreaking. I know that's a lot of change for the student. I'm feeling disappointed, Mrs. Taylor, as someone who's been in the school district for 10 years, for her to have the expectation that a new person coming in is going to be exactly the same as the prior SPED teacher is something that she just needs to throw out the window and forget about. It's time to move on and support Susan in this new role that she has. I'm excited to implement this new IEP plan for Carl. I think it's a great start, and I am excited to see what types of results the IEP brings about. A few things I was valuing as I took a look at this case study include students' education. Yes, I want Carl to be included in the classroom, but I also need students within his classroom to feel safe. If they don't feel safe, they can't learn. So I was valuing students' education and wanting to get further support for him. I'm valuing inclusion. I think Carl needs to be in the classroom. Having more support would help de-escalate issues that come up. The pair is going to be able to help calm him down. It's not going to take away from Mrs. Taylor having to come over and help offer calm down strategies. I'm valuing Carl in this as well. I think that me showing support of Carl, wanting to get him some additional help, is vital to Carl being successful. I think also me taking time to try to develop a relationship with Carl lets him know that I care. When he knows that I care, he will want to be in class. Some issues that are still unresolved. Can the school hire an additional staff member, such as a parent? What does Carl do after school? I got to thinking that Carl is seeming to lack a positive male role model influence, so knowing what he does after school, if there's opportunities close by for him to interact with a male role model would be an excellent thing. And will Mrs. Taylor change her attitude with the new IEP plan being enforced? That brings up category 5, reflection, promoting the academic success of every student by enhancing instructional capacity. In this case study, based upon my implementation plan for this case study, I think that academic success can occur when Carl's classmates feel safe in the classroom, and that involves us intervening when Carl gets more aggressive. I think that academic success for Carl happens by helping him learn calm down strategies so that he's not getting so frustrated and having to leave class. I think academic success for Susan's other students on her caseload occurs by encouraging her and building her confidence in the decision she's made with Carl. I think that I promoted the personal well-being of every student by enhancing instructional capacity, by providing social emotional support for Carl, giving him calm down strategies, trying to build rapport with him. Safety for Carl's classmates, that ensures their well-being, that they're being taken care of. Checking in on Mrs. Taylor and Susan and having a conversation with them, that is going to help their well-being and knowing that I care about them as staff members, but also individually. Enhancing instruction. I was able to enhance instruction through my plan of action by building relationships with staff. I'm taking the time to meet with Susan and Mrs. Taylor. I'm providing additional support for Carl, whether it's through a para, whether it's through me intervening more, whatever that looks like. I'm helping provide that additional support for him. Building relationship with Carl, that enables him to know that I'm in his corner, I'm for him, and I want the best for him. And if he knows that, then he's going to hopefully try harder in class, and that's going to enhance instruction for his teacher. This concludes the case study, and thank you for watching.